Okay, welcome to the deep dive. You've handed us a stack of source material articles, research your notes, and our mission, as always, is to jump in headfirst, unpack it, and pull out the absolute most important nuggets of knowledge for you.
Think of us as your personal knowledge excavators, really, digging through all the details to find the insights that, actually matter.
Exactly. And today we're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating topic presented in your material: potential widespread changes to the U.S. food system.
Yeah, this one's definitely got a lot packed into it.
It does. Now, full transparency, the source material you sent does mention a specific political figure and a campaign. We know that can instantly spark debate on all sides,
Right.
but let's be crystal clear up front. Our mission here is strictly to explore the information presented in the source material itself, regarding food additives, specific foods, the health stuff mentioned.
Absolutely. We're not here to endorse or critique any political viewpoint, not at all.
We're just here to understand what the source claims is happening and why, based purely on the pages you provided.
Precisely. And the source, well, it lays out a compelling case, at least from its perspective, for why certain ingredients and foods are being targeted, for removal or phasing out.
So we'll look at what those are.
Yeah. What they are, the reasons given in the source, and what the material suggests about the broader context, potential implications.
Okay, so consider this deep dive your shortcut to understanding the source's argument. Which foods, which additives it claims are being discussed for removal,
Why the source says this is the case.
and what the source believes the bigger picture might look like. Let's jump in.
All right. So the source material kicks off by introducing an initiative or maybe a campaign. It calls it Make America Healthy Again.
Okay, Make America Healthy Again. According to the source, what's the main focus of this initiative then?
The source states its central focus is on targeting synthetic foods and specifically food dyes.
Food dyes, okay.
And a key point the source highlights right away, really hammers home, is that many of these substances it discusses are apparently already banned in Europe.
Ugh, that European comparison. Yeah, that's prominent in the source material, isn't it?
Very.
It really homes in on that difference, basically asking the question, why are these chemicals still in the U.S. food supply when, according to the source, other developed countries, like in Europe, have already removed them, sometimes years ago?
Yeah, and that comparison seems to be like a foundational piece of the source's argument for why these potential changes are needed here.
Right. Okay, let's get specific then. The source material claims there's a list, 9 additives, I think, that are already officially banned, or as the source puts it, being phased out under Kennedy's leadership. What are those specific 9 additives mentioned in the source?
Okay, according to the material you sent, the 9 additives targeted are red dye number 3,
Okay.
citrus red number 2, orange B, red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6,
Wow, okay.
blue 1, blue 2, and green 3.
That's a very specific list of synthetic colors. And the source doesn't just list them, right? It connects them to health concerns.
Yeah.
What are the health links the source actually mentions for these dyes?
Well, the source claims these dyes have been linked to hyperactivity in children. That's a big one mentioned.
Okay, hyperactivity.
And additionally, the source brings up potential carcinogenic effects, meaning, they could potentially cause cancer. That's the claim.
So, according to the source, these aren't just about making food look pretty. They come with significant claimed health risks.
That's the argument presented, yeah.
And this is where it gets, very real for people. The source names specific, everyday foods, where it claims you'll find these banned or phasing out dyes.
Yeah, and this list from the source is, well, it's quite striking because of how common these products are. For Red 3 and Red 40, the source lists items like Skittles, Lucky Charms,
Wow.
strawberry or cherry Pop-Tarts, fruit roll-ups, red Gatorade, Jell-O, and even maraschino cherries.
Huh. Many of those are really deeply embedded in American diets, aren't they? Especially for kids.
Totally.
What about yellow 5 and yellow 6, according to the source?
The source points to things like Cheetos, Doritos, Kraft mac and cheese,
The classic blue box.
right? Mountain Dew, Fruit Loops, Twinkies, and even instant ramen seasoning packets.
Again, just incredibly common items.
Yeah.
How about blue 1 and blue 2?
For those, the source claims they're found in products like Gatorade Frost Blue, M&M's, Kool-Aid, Ice Pops, and Ring Pops.
And green 3, any examples there?
For green 3, the source lists mint gum, lime jello, green popsicles, and also frosted cookies and cupcakes. The ones with the bright green frosting.
Gotcha. And were there specific foods mentioned for the other 2? Citrus red number 2 and orange B?
Yeah, the source notes that citrus red number 2 is used on the dyed peel of Florida oranges.
Oh, interesting.
And orange B is apparently found in hot dog casings.
Okay, so the source is really emphasizing that these targeted substances aren't hiding in obscure corners of the grocery store.
Not at all. That's exactly right. The source explicitly makes the point that these products are, well, ubiquitous, found in kids' lunchboxes, on gas station shelves, frequently in school cafeterias.
Right.
That prevalence seems really central to the source's argument for why these ingredients need to be addressed.
Okay, that covers what the source claims is already happening with bans or phasing out. But the source material doesn't stop there, does it? It looks ahead to ingredients it claims are currently under review or marked for future bans.
Correct. The source identifies several more ingredients or categories it claims are, sort of, next on the chopping block.
What are they?
Things like titanium dioxide, brominated vegetable oil, that's BVO,
Okay.
potassium bromate, propyl paraben, glyphosate, which most people know as Roundup,
Right.
high fructose corn syrup, or HFCS, seed oils, also called vegetable oils, and then ultra-processed foods, UPFs, as like a whole category.
Wow. That's quite an extensive list for potential future action.
Yeah.
Let's try and break those down a bit, starting with titanium dioxide. Where does the source claim you find this, and what does it say about it?
Okay, so the source claims titanium dioxide is present in things like skim milk, chewing gum. It specifically mentions Trident, frosted donuts, coffee creamers, and a lot of store-bought salad dressings. The source lists it as under review, but doesn't go into the same depth on specific health concerns for this one as some of the others in the material provided.
Okay. How about brominated vegetable oil, BVO?
According to the source, BVO can be found in certain drinks. It lists Mountain Dew, Fanta Citrus, some older Gatorade formulas apparently, and Citrus Fresca.
Okay.
And similar to titanium dioxide, the source just lists it as under review without tons of detail on specific concerns in this particular material.
Got it. Potassium bromate.
The source links potassium bromate to common baked goods, things like store-bought breads and buns, frozen pizza dough, commercial bagels, that kind of stuff.
And propyl paraben, where does the source say that's used?
The source claims propyl paraben is used in packaged tortillas, those low-fat snack cakes, cake frostings, and various shelf-stable desserts.
Okay, shifting gears slightly to something many people might recognize from agriculture, glyphosate or Roundup. Where does the source claim this shows up in our food?
Well, the source says glyphosate is found on crops like wheat, oats, soy, and corn. And interestingly, it also says in a lot of coffee.
Coffee, really?
Yeah. And the stated reason for wanting this ban, according to the source, is the claimed cancer risk associated with it.
That's a claim. It's definitely been widely debated. Okay, moving to a big one in the source material. High fructose corn syrup, HFCS. The source really dedicates significant space to this one.
It really does.
Where does the source say we find HFCS, and what are its claimed concerns?
So the source lists HFCS in the usual suspects, soda, barbecue sauce, ketchup, candy bars, snack cakes. But the source's description of its concerns is, well, it's quite strong. It refers to it as mitochondrial poison.
Mitochondrial poison. That's powerful language from the source. Let's break that down a bit based on what the source says. Mitochondria are like the powerhouses of our cells, right? They make energy.
Exactly.
How does the source claim HFCS acts as a poison to them, and what does it link this to?
The source claims that poor mitochondrial health, which it directly links to HFCS consumption, is tied to a really long list of modern diseases. Things like ADHD, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune conditions, even thyroid conditions.
Oh, quite a list.
And the source also makes the pretty significant claim that HFCS consumption is a primary driver of fatty liver disease, specifically the non-alcoholic kind. It calls it an epidemic affecting both adults and children.
Those are incredibly serious claims from the source. And how does the source explain the process? Like what's happening in the body, according to them?
So the source claims that when you consume HFCS, like 90% of it gets processed by the liver.
Okay.
And the source argues this just completely overloads the liver. It hinders its ability to burn fat efficiently and detoxify the body properly. This overload, according to the source, then leads to inflammation, causes weight gain, makes weight loss resistant, and results in a buildup of toxins.
So the source presents a pretty direct line from HFCS consumption to a whole range of metabolic and chronic health issues.
That's the picture it paints, yes.
Now, another major category the source focuses on is seed oils or vegetable oils. Where does the source claim these are commonly found?
Yeah, the source even gives them a nickname, calling them the Hateful Eight.
The Hateful Eight.
Yeah, these are listed as canola oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, rice bran oil, and grapeseed oil.
Okay, so basically most common vegetable oils.
Pretty much. And the source makes a really striking claim about how prevalent they are, stating they are found in, get this, 80% of the packaged food supply.
80%? Seriously?
That's the claim. And beyond that, the source says they are common in chips, crackers, salad dressings, and especially fast food, basically anything fried in restaurants.
80% of packaged food, according to the source.
Right.
That's almost an unimaginable presence in the food system.
It really is, if that figure's accurate.
And what are the source's claimed concerns about these seed oils?
Well, just like HFCS, the source labels seed oils as mitochondrial poison. It claims they cause oxidative stress.
Okay, oxidative stress.
Yeah.
Like rusting, but inside your cells.
Kind of, yeah. The source likens it to the browning that happens on a cut apple, but happening inside your body at a cellular level.
Okay.
The source even references a study, now we're just reporting the claim here, but a study claiming that one French fry cooked in seed oil generates as many problematic compounds, specifically aldehydes, which the source claims are cancer-causing, as smoking one tobacco cigarette.
Wow. That is certainly an attention-grabbing comparison presented by the source.
Definitely.
What else does the source claim about how these oils interact with the body?
It discusses a concept it calls lipid membrane reorganization.
Lipid membrane reorganization. What's that mean, according to the source?
The claim is that when you consume these seed oils, they actually embed themselves in the membranes of your cells, like within hours.
Okay.
But what's really notable, according to the source, is how long they stick around. It claims they have a half-life of 680 days.
680 days. So half of it is still there almost 2 years later.
That's the claim. Half remains 2 years later. And the source links this prolonged presence directly to chronic inflammation throughout the body.
So the source's perspective is that the negative effects aren't just temporary. They become a long-term part of your cellular structure, leading to this persistent inflammation.
That's the argument being made in the material, yes.
And the source points out something interesting about these oils and a major health organization.
It does, yeah. The source specifically highlights that the American Heart Association reportedly puts its seal of approval on these very seed oils. The source just notes this. It doesn't explicitly state a conflict, but the implication in the material seems to be that this approval is, well, at odds with the claimed negative health effects being presented.
That's an intriguing point raised by the source. Given these concerns, does the source offer any practical steps people can take right now regarding seed oils? Without waiting for potential bans?
It does, actually. It suggests a pretty practical tip for dining out, using a seed oil allergy card to inform restaurants about your preference.
Like an actual card?
Yeah, apparently. And it also suggests alternative cooking fats that it considers safer. Things like avocado oil, olive oil, butter, ghee, lard, and duck fat.
That's specific, actionable advice presented in the source material. Good to know.
Yeah.
Finally, the source includes ultra-processed foods, or UPFs, as a broader category targeted for future action. What does the source say about those?
Well, the source mentions a claim, and it attributes this to Kennedy, stating that UPFs are, and this is strong language again, a form of genocide, particularly impacting Native American communities.
Wow. That's a very powerful and specific claim attributed to the political figure in the source material.
It is, and the source material indicates a goal to ban these foods from government programs and school lunches.
Okay, so summing up this part of the dives then, according to the source material you provided, the potential targets range from these very specific synthetic dyes and chemicals
Yeah, like Red 40.
all the way to really broad categories like seed oils and ultra-processed foods in general.
The source certainly presents it as a proposed fundamental shift in what constitutes the U.S. food environment, a really big change.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit then, based on the source material, and look at the broader context and implications it presents. The source acknowledges, again, that discussing these topics can be politically charged,
Right.
but reiterates its focus is on the information about the food itself. To underscore the why behind these proposed changes, what U.S. health statistics does the source present?
The source paints a pretty stark picture using statistics. It claims the U.S. is the wealthiest country, but ranks, like, 37th globally in overall health.
37th. Ouch.
Yeah. It notes the U.S. spends an enormous $4.6 trillion annually on healthcare. A figure the source points out would be the fourth largest GDP in the world if healthcare spending were its own country.
4.6 trillion. That's staggering.
It is. And yet, according to the source, the nation is sicker than ever, while pharmaceutical companies are, quote, richer than ever.
Those numbers are certainly significant, and they highlight the source's deep concern about the current state of health. The source also hones in on one specific disease in the context of healthcare spending, doesn't it?
It does, diabetes. The source claims that 1 out of every 4 healthcare dollars spent in the U.S. goes towards diabetes.
$1 in $4.
Yeah. And then the source makes the very strong assertion that diabetes is a metabolic disease that is, quote, 100% preventable and 100% reversible.
1 in 4 healthcare dollars spent on a condition the source claims is fully preventable and reversible. That's a critical point the source uses to frame its perspective on the whole system, it seems.
Absolutely.
How does the source connect these statistics to its view of the healthcare system itself?
Well, the source presents a quite provocative interpretation. It claims the healthcare system isn't actually broken.
Not broken?
No, rather, according to the source, it's designed exactly as a cash cow or maybe a subscription model. That's the language used.
A subscription model for healthcare. How does that work, according to the source?
The source argues that the consumption of cheap, convenient, inflammatory processed foods, the stuff we've been talking about, leads to symptoms. People then seek medical help.
Right.
And the source claims doctors primarily prescribe medication to manage these symptoms instead of addressing the underlying dietary and lifestyle causes.
So, pills over plates, basically.
From the source's perspective, yes. It claims this system is designed to keep people reliant on prescriptions, part of that subscription model, rather than truly healing the root cause through diet.
That is a very specific and critical view of the system presented by the source. Does the source use a comparison to another country to support its argument about the potential impact of food regulations?
Yes, it does. It contrasts the U.S. with Italy.
Italy, okay.
It notes that Italy has a longer average lifespan and significantly lower rates of obesity, disease, and diabetes compared to the U.S.
Right. The Mediterranean diet idea often comes up.
It does. And while the source acknowledges other factors might play a role, like lifestyle, more walking, strong community, things like that, it suggests a key difference is that Italy banned many of these specific chemicals back in 2016. The implication is a direct link between those bans and Italy's better health outcomes.
So the source strongly suggests that Italy's stricter food regulations are a significant factor in its healthier population outcomes compared to the U.S.
That seems to be a major point in the source material, yes.
The source also draws a clear distinction between whole foods and processed foods.
Oh, yeah, very clear. The source points out the fundamental difference. Whole foods, like, an apple or a plain potato, they don't have an ingredient list because they are the single ingredient.
Makes sense.
Processed foods, on the other hand, like apple chips or potato chips, the source says they can have 20, 30, or even more ingredients, many of which are the very substances discussed in this deep dive.
And it uses some pretty strong terms for those.
It does. The source uses terms like frankenfoods or food-like substances for products with these long lists of often unpronounceable ingredients.
Calling them frankenfoods certainly conveys the source's strong view on highly processed items.
Okay, so based on all this information in the source material, what kind of practical advice is offered to you, the listener, right now?
The source's core practical advice is actually pretty straightforward. It boils down to prioritize eating single-ingredient foods whenever possible.
Okay.
And diligently check the ingredient lists on everything else you buy.
Simple steps, but potentially powerful if you actually do it.
Right.
And does the source suggest people just sit back and wait for government action or potential bans to happen?
No, not at all. The source strongly emphasizes personal responsibility. It uses this phrase, sweep your own front porch.
Sweep your own front porch,
Meaning, don't wait for potential government changes years down the line. Take immediate control over your own food choices by, as the source puts it, shopping with your fork and your dollars. Now.
That really aligns with empowering the individual in their food journey, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Does the source give any sense of a timeline for when these potential bans, if they actually happen, might take effect?
It references a timeline mentioned by Kennedy in the source material, suggesting that some phasing out could begin by the end of 2025 and 2026.
So, fairly soon.
Potentially for some things. But the overall process, the source suggests, could unfold over the next, say, 1 to 4 years.
Okay, so according to the source, while action may be planned, it could still take some time, which reinforces that idea of not waiting to make personal changes.
Exactly. Don't wait for Washington, basically.
What does the source say about the scientific basis for its claims? especially considering that, some discussions around additives involve conflicting data or interpretations.
Yeah, the source addresses this directly. It claims that despite any perceived confusion out there, the science is clear regarding the harmful effects of these additives and seed oils.
Okay, so it asserts the science is settled from its view.
Yes, and it attributes any confusion or conflicting studies primarily to funding from Big Pharma and Big Food, implying corruption or bias in that research. As evidence for its own claims, the source mentions citing 275 references in a related book that supports these arguments.
So the source clearly positions its claims as scientifically supported while actively questioning the integrity of industry-funded research. That's its stance.
That's the stance presented in the material, correct?
Does the source touch upon the potential impact of these proposed changes on school lunches? That seems like a big area of concern.
Yes, it does. The source expresses hope that these initiatives will lead to positive changes in school lunch programs, getting some of this stuff out.
Right.
It also mentions a nonprofit, the Soul West Foundation, which it notes is already working on improving the quality of food available to children.
That connects back to the source's earlier point about finding these things in common, kids' foods and lunchboxes.
Yeah.
What about the amount of these additives consumed? Does the source claim they're only problematic in large quantities, or?
No, actually, the source claims these substances are harmful even in small doses.
Even small doses. Why?
Because, it claims, they bioaccumulate.
Bioaccumulate, meaning they build up.
Exactly. They build up in the body over time rather than being quickly eliminated.
What?
The source states this accumulation increases the body's overall stress load, triggering inflammation and that oxidative stress we talked about.
Right.
Which, the source claims, eventually leads to disease down the road.
Okay.
And the source presents symptoms, feeling unwell in various ways, not just as problems in themselves, but as the body's communication system, signaling this buildup and stress.
The idea of bioaccumulation that really underscores the source's perspective on the importance of long-term, even low-level exposure.
It seems central to the argument, yeah, that it all adds up.
Finally, the source discusses organic foods. Does buying organic fully protect you from the substances discussed, according to the source? Is it a magic bullet?
The source is actually cautious here. It states that simply buying organic doesn't always guarantee safety, apparently due to potential loopholes or cross-contamination.
Okay, so not necessarily foolproof.
Not entirely, according to this material. However, it does offer practical guidance, referencing the Environmental Working Group's well-known lists, the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen.
Ah, yes, the Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen. Tell us about those lists, based on the source.
So the source explains that the Clean 15 are foods claimed to have the lowest levels of pesticide residue. This makes them generally safer options, the source suggests, even if you can't buy them organic.
Okay, so good options for saving a bit of money, maybe.
Potentially. According to the source, this list includes avocados, sweet corn, pineapples, onions, papayas, frozen sweet peas,
Got it.
asparagus, mushrooms, sweet potatoes, mangoes, watermelon, cantaloupe, kiwi, honeydew melon, and carrots.
That's helpful for prioritizing. And the Dirty Dozen, the ones to be more careful with.
The Dirty Dozen, according to the source, are the foods claimed to have the highest levels of contaminants. The source advises that these foods should ideally be bought organic and non-GMO if you choose to consume them.
Makes sense. What's on that list?
The list includes strawberries, spinach with a specific note of caution in the source, grapes, apples, cherries, kale-colored mustard greens also with a caution note.
Right.
Peaches, pears, nectarines, blueberries, bell and hot peppers, and green beans.
That distinction from the source is really valuable, I think, for people trying to make informed choices on a budget or just navigating the grocery store.
Yeah, practical guidance.
And one final detail from the source material. It highlights one specific food it suggests eating daily.
It does. The source specifically recommends eating an avocado every single day.
An avocado a day. What are the claimed benefits?
It lists a whole range of claimed benefits: aiding fat loss, stabilizing blood sugar, lowering inflammation, supporting hormone balance, and helping activate nutrients from other foods, mainly thanks to its monounsaturated fats, which are seen as anti-inflammatory.
So the avocado gets a special shout out in the source material for daily consumption.
It certainly does. Gets the gold star, apparently.
Well, that was a significant deep dive into the source material you provided. We've unpacked the claims about specific food dyes and chemicals allegedly being targeted for bans.
Yeah, the reds, yellows, blues.
explored the categories like seed oils and ultra-processed foods that the source says are under review.
The Hateful Eight and UPFs.
Looked at the specific foods where these substances are claimed to be found, which are, often very common items.
Right, things many people eat daily.
And reviewed the source's perspective on the health implications, the U.S. health statistics it uses, and even its pretty critical view of the healthcare system.
We've also covered the practical advice the source offers, like checking those ingredient lists, thinking about the clean 15 dirty dozen,
Right.
as well as that idea of bioaccumulation and the proposed timeline for potential changes.
Absolutely. Now, bringing it back to you, the listener, based on the source's claim that even small amounts of these substances can build up in your body over time, potentially contributing to symptoms, and based on the source's view that symptoms are actually your body communicating, what does that suggest to you about the long-term impact of your everyday food choices, regardless of whether potential future regulations actually come to pass or not?
Yeah, it's a powerful thought. And echoing the source's advice again, what does sweeping your own front porch mean for how you look at your plate, maybe even starting today, given the information presented in this material?
Definitely something to think about. That wraps up this deep dive.